The small hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors and the occasional squeak of rubber-soled shoes in the hallway outside. Sunlight filtered through half-drawn blinds, casting warm stripes across the bed where a young girl lay motionless, her chest rising and falling with mechanical precision, helped by the machines surrounding her. Maylee had been asleep for 23 days now. Not the kind of sleep you wake up from after a good night's rest, but the deep, unreachable kind doctors called a coma. The 12-year-old orphan hadn't moved or spoken since the ambulance had rushed her through the emergency room doors with a dangerously high fever and the telltale stiff neck that pointed to bacterial meningitis. Dr. Rivera paused at the doorway, coffee in hand, taking a moment to prepare herself before entering. After nearly 3 weeks of no change, these morning check-ins had become harder, not easier. She took a deep breath and pushed through the door with a practiced smile, even though her patient couldn't see it. "Good morning, May," she said brightly, setting down her coffee and picking up the chart. Dr. Rivera always spoke to her patients, conscious or not. Some studies suggested coma patients could sometimes hear, and besides, it felt more humane than treating the girl like she wasn't there. "Let's see how you're doing today." Her fingers moved efficiently through the routine checks, pulse, pupils, reflexes, noting everything in the chart though nothing had changed in days. The girl's black hair had been neatly braided by one of the night nurses. Someone had placed a small stuffed rabbit next to her pillow. The nurses had all grown attached to May, especially once they learned her story. 6 months ago, May had lost both parents in a highway collision. A truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel, crossing the center line. May had been staying with her elderly grandmother, her only remaining relative. But the stress had been too much for the woman's fragile health, and she'd suffered a stroke just 2 months after taking in her granddaughter. She was now in a nursing home, her memory fading, unable to care for herself, let alone a child. So May had entered the system, that cold. Impersonal network of social workers, temporary homes, and uncertainty. She'd been placed in a group home temporarily, while more permanent arrangements could be made. That's where she had contracted meningitis, which had spread rapidly through her system before anyone realized how sick she was. By the time she arrived at Metro Children's Hospital, May was already slipping away from them. Dr. Rivera had worked frantically with her team to control the infection, relieve the dangerous pressure on the girl's brain, and stabilize her condition. They'd succeeded in saving her life, but May hadn't woken up. "You have some new cards," Dr. Rivera said, nodding toward the windowsill where a collection of handmade get-well cards had accumulated. "Your classmates sent another batch. Your teacher, Ms. Cooper, brought them by yesterday while you were having tests." The doctor picked one up, smiling at the wobbly handwriting and colorful drawing. "This one's from someone named Trey. He's drawn what I think is supposed to be a dragon. It's very creative." She placed the card back with the others. "Your friends miss you." That was the heartbreaking part. The cards and occasional visitors were the only reminder that May had a life before this room, before these machines. The social worker assigned to her case was overwhelmed with 50 other children, and the group home staff changed too frequently for meaningful attachments to form. Dr. Rivera checked the IV lines and adjusted the blanket covering May's thin frame. The girl had lost weight despite the nutrients they were pumping into her. Her once round cheeks had hollowed, and the hospital gown seemed to swallow her whole. "Let's open these blinds a bit more, shall we? Get some proper sunshine in here." The doctor pulled the cord, allowing more light to flood the room. Much better. Everyone needs a little sun, even sleeping beauties. Outside in the hallway, Dr. Rivera could hear the usual morning bustle picking up. Meal carts rattling, shift changes happening, families arriving for visiting hours. The pediatric neurology ward was normally a place of progress and recovery, but May's case had cast a shadow over the usual optimism of the staff. Medical science could only tell them so much. The infection was under control. The swelling in her brain had subsided to safe levels, and all her other organs were functioning normally. By all accounts, she should have woken up by now. Each passing day made Dr. Rivera more concerned that they were missing something, or worse, that the damage had been too severe. She sank into the chair beside the bed, allowing herself a moment of unprofessional weariness. The night shift had been brutal. A multi-car pileup had sent 3 children to the emergency room, and she'd been called in to consult on 2 of them. She'd gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep in the on-call room before rounds began again. "I could use some of your peaceful sleep right about now," she murmured, immediately feeling guilty for the thought. "But I'd much rather see you open those eyes, kid." Dr. Rivera took a sip of her cooling coffee and flipped through May's latest test results. The EEG showed normal sleep patterns, which was encouraging. Brain activity was present, though subdued. Sometimes Dr. Rivera wondered what was happening in that mind. Was May dreaming? Was she aware on some level? Or was her consciousness simply paused, waiting to resume where it left off? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Nurse Chen poked his head in. His kind face creased with the perpetual smile that made him a favorite among patients. "Sorry to interrupt, doctor. Social services is on the phone." Again, Dr. Rivera sighed. "Tell them the same thing we told them yesterday. And the day before, May's condition is unchanged. She's not stable enough for transfer to a long-term care facility." This was only partially true. Physically, May could probably be moved, but Dr. Rivera wasn't ready to give up on her yet. Long-term care facilities rarely had the specialized neurological expertise to monitor subtle changes or intervene quickly if needed. And she knew from experience that coma patients in such places often received minimal stimulation, minimal hope. Nurse Chen nodded, understanding the unspoken reasoning. "I'll hold them off. But they're pushing hard. Budget constraints, bed shortages, the usual song and dance. I know." Dr. Rivera rubbed her temples. "Tell them I'll call back this afternoon with a full update. That should buy us another day at least." After Nurse Chen left, Dr. Rivera turned back to her patient. "Hear that, May? The system's trying to shuffle you along, but we're not having it. Not yet. You take your time, but not too much time, okay? Show us you're still in there." She stood and straightened her lab coat, professionalism settling back over her like armor. There were other patients to see, other families waiting for news. But she paused at the door, looking back at the small figure in the too-big bed. "See you this afternoon. May, think about waking up for us." Throughout the day, various hospital staff drifted in and out of May's room. The physical therapist came to move her limbs, preventing muscle atrophy. A respiratory therapist checked her breathing. Nurses changed IV bags, recorded vitals, adjusted pillows, and spoke to her in gentle voices as they worked. In the early afternoon, someone from the hospital's volunteer program came to read to her. They did this for all the long-term pediatric patients. Today it was an elderly man with a soft, gravelly voice who read from a collection of folk tales from around the world. Dr. Rivera returned as promised, this time accompanied by 2 residents who watched carefully as she demonstrated examination techniques specific to coma patients. She was known throughout the hospital for her dedicated teaching, even with her most challenging cases. "Notice the slight movement when I apply pressure here," she told the residents, gently pressing against May's foot. "That's a good sign. The basic reflexes are intact. Now watch her eyes when I lift the lid." The residents took notes, asked questions, and then filed out behind Dr. Rivera as she moved on to the next patient. The room fell quiet again. Evening brought a shift change, a new set of nurses with fresh energy. One of them, a woman with graying hair who had been at the hospital for 30 years, brought a small radio and set it on the bedside table. "They say music helps. Sweetheart," she told the unconscious girl as she tuned it to a station playing soft classical melodies. "And if it doesn't, well, it makes the room feel less lonely anyway." As night settled over the hospital, the halls grew quieter. The overnight staff moved with hushed efficiency, and the lights dimmed to allow patients to rest. In May's room, only the small lamp in the corner remained lit, casting a gentle glow over her still form. Outside her window, the city continued its restless pace, cars honking, people returning home from late shifts, restaurants closing for the night. Life moved forward relentlessly while inside room 407. Time seemed suspended, waiting for one small girl to find her way back. On the bedside table, among the medical equipment and monitoring devices, sat a framed photograph that one of the nurses had rescued from May's personal belongings, a family portrait from happier times. Mother, father, and daughter smiled at the camera, unaware of how quickly everything would change. And so another day ended as the 23 before it had, with May Lee still adrift in her mysterious sleep, and those around her holding on to hope that tomorrow might bring the change they were all waiting for. What no one could have predicted was just how extraordinary that change would be, or how it would begin with words so unexpected that they would prompt a doctor to reach for a phone and dial 911 with shaking hands. The 24th morning of Mei Li's coma began like all the others. The night shift handed over to the day staff, reporting no changes. The same machines beeped their steady rhythms. The same sunlight filtered through the same blinds. The same sense of waiting hung in the air. Dr. Rivera arrived earlier than usual, dark circles under her eyes betraying another night of poor sleep. She'd been dreaming about her patients again, especially May. In the dream, the girl had been trying to tell her something, but no sound would come out. Dr. Rivera had woken up with a sense of urgency she couldn't shake. "Morning, sunshine," she said, her usual greeting as she entered room 407. She set her coffee on the counter and picked up May's chart, flipping through the night's notes. "Looks like you had a peaceful night. That's good." But as she moved closer to check May's vitals, something caught her attention. The monitors tracking brain activity showed subtle differences from yesterday's readings, small spikes and patterns that hadn't been there before. Dr. Rivera leaned in, studying the readouts with renewed focus. After 24 days of looking at essentially the same data, any change stood out like a lighthouse in the fog. She quickly pulled up yesterday's readings on the tablet for comparison. "Well, hello there," she murmured, looking from the screen to May's face. "Something's definitely happening in that brain of yours." She began her examination with more attention than usual, watching carefully for any physical signs that might correspond with the changed brain activity. Pupil response, reflex tests, breathing patterns, all the standard checks but with heightened awareness. When she gently lifted May's eyelid to check pupil response, she nearly dropped her pen light. Instead of the usual blank stare, May's pupil contracted sharply, and for just a moment Dr. Rivera could have sworn the eye had tried to focus on her. "May," she said, her professional detachment slipping. "May, can you hear me?" She moved to the other eye, and this time there was no mistake. The eye definitely tracked her movement for a split second before becoming unfocused again. Dr. Rivera's heart began to race. After nearly a month of stillness, these tiny responses felt monumental. She pressed the call button for the nursing station. "Can I get Nurse Chen or someone from neurology in here right away, please?" she said when the desk responded, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm seeing some changes in our patient in 407. While waiting for assistance, she continued speaking to May, her voice clear and encouraging. "May, if you can hear me, you're doing great. You're at Metro Children's Hospital. You've been very sick, but you're getting better. I'm Dr. Rivera, and I've been taking care of you." No visible response this time, but Dr. Rivera kept talking, explaining simple facts about where May was and what had happened. Sometimes coma patients emerged confused and frightened, and a familiar voice could help anchor them. Nurse Chen arrived, slightly breathless. "What's happening?" he asked, moving immediately to the monitors. "Brain activity changes," Dr. Rivera said, pointing to the readouts. "And pupillary response. I think she might be starting to wake up." Nurse Chen's face broke into a wide smile. "After all this time? That's wonderful." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Dr. Rivera cautioned, though she couldn't help the hope bubbling up inside her. It could be a temporary change, or it might take days or weeks for her to fully emerge. But something is definitely happening. They worked together, performing additional tests, documenting every tiny response. May's fingers twitched slightly when her palm was stroked, another new development. Her breathing pattern changed subtly when her name was called. "I'm going to order a full neurological workup," Dr. Rivera said, "and I want her monitored continuously. Any change, no matter how small, I want to know about it." Nurse Chen nodded, already updating the orders in the system. "Should I notify social services?" Dr. Rivera hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet. Let's be sure this is real progress before we get everyone's hopes up." The morning progressed, with a new energy in room 407. Staff, who had grown accustomed to the routine of caring for a coma patient, now moved with renewed purpose. Word spread through the pediatric ward. Mei Li might be waking up. Dr. Rivera had other patients to see, but she returned to May's room whenever she could, checking the latest readings, speaking encouragingly to the girl, watching for any new signs of awareness. It was during one of these quick check-ins, around noon, that it happened. Dr. Rivera was standing at May's bedside, updating her chart and talking softly about the beautiful spring day outside, when a small movement caught her eye. May's fingers were moving, not the random twitches from earlier, but a deliberate motion, as if she were trying to reach for something. May? Dr. Rivera put down the chart and moved closer. Can you hear me? Can you squeeze my hand? She gently placed her hand in May's and after a moment's pause felt the faintest pressure in return. It was so slight she might have imagined it, but then it came again, more definite this time. That's it, she encouraged, her voice thick with emotion. That's really good, May. Can you try to open your eyes for me? For several long moments, nothing happened. Then May's eyelids fluttered, struggling against the weight of weeks of disuse. Dr. Rivera held her breath, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever tenuous connection was forming. Finally, slowly, May's eyes opened. They were unfocused at first, drifting aimlessly around the room. But then, gradually, they settled on Dr. Rivera's face. Hello there, Dr. Rivera said softly, smiling through the tears that had sprung unexpectedly to her eyes. Welcome back. May's brow furrowed slightly, confusion evident in her expression. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Dr. Rivera quickly reached for a cup of water with a straw. Your throat probably feels very dry, she explained, holding the straw to May's lips. Take just a tiny sip if you can. That might help. May managed a small sip, grimacing at the effort. Dr. Rivera pressed the call button again, knowing they needed to document this milestone and begin the proper protocols for a patient emerging from a coma. You've been asleep for quite a while, she explained gently to May. Your body needs time to remember how to do everything, but you're doing amazingly well. May's eyes had more focus now, traveling around the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Her expression shifted from confusion to something like fear. It's okay, Dr. Rivera assured her. You're safe. You're in a hospital. You got very sick, but you're getting better now. The girl's lips moved again, and this time a sound emerged, a dry, rasping whisper that Dr. Rivera couldn't quite make out. Don't try to talk too much right now, she advised. Just rest. Everything's okay. But May seemed determined. Her hand clutched at Dr. Rivera's sleeve, her eyes suddenly intense with purpose. The word was barely audible, but definitely there. Dr. Rivera leaned closer. What was that, May? What are you trying to say? May tried again, her voice slightly stronger. They told me. Dr. Rivera felt a chill run down her spine. Something about May's expression had changed. The confusion was gone, replaced by an unsettling clarity. Who told you? She asked gently. Was it a dream you had while you were sleeping? May shook her head slightly, wincing at the movement. Not dream. Her voice was gaining strength with each word, though it remained raspy and faint. They told me to tell you. At that moment, Nurse Chen returned with Dr. Patel, the head of neurology. They stopped short at the sight of their patient awake and attempting to speak. Well, this is remarkable, Dr. Patel said, moving quickly to May's bedside. Hello, young lady. I'm Dr. Patel. May's eyes flickered to him briefly, but then returned to Dr. Rivera with that same intense gaze. Her grip on the doctor's sleeve tightened. Numbers, she whispered. They told me. The numbers. Dr. Rivera glanced at her colleagues, then back to May. What numbers, sweetheart? Do you mean like your age or the date? May shook her head again, more emphatically this time. Important numbers. Have to tell you, Dr. Patel stepped forward. Perhaps we should let her rest. This level of agitation isn't uncommon when patients first wake up, but it's not ideal for recovery. Just a moment, Dr. Rivera said, something in May's desperation compelling her to listen. May, what numbers do you need to tell me? The girl took a shaky breath, and when she spoke again, her voice had an eerie steadiness to it that contrasted sharply with her physical weakness. 84719. Old Pine Road. The address came out in a clear, deliberate cadence. Check behind. The furnace. Wall is false? The three medical professionals exchanged concerned glances. This wasn't the usual confusion of a patient waking from a coma. This was something else entirely. How do you know that address, May? Dr. Rivera asked carefully. May's eyes seemed to look through her, beyond her, focused on something none of them could see. They showed me. The ones who can't go home. Said you would. Help them. Dr. Rivera felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The girl's words made no sense, and yet they were delivered with such conviction. Who showed you, May? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper now. May's eyes finally focused directly on hers. with a gaze so penetrating that Dr. Rivera found herself unable to look away. "The other children?" May whispered. "The ones still waiting in the dark." And then, as if the effort of delivering this message had drained all her newfound energy, May's eyes fluttered closed again. For one terrifying moment, Dr. Rivera feared she had slipped back into her coma, but the monitors showed she was merely sleeping. A normal, healing sleep this time, not the deep unconsciousness that had held her for 24 days. Dr. Patel immediately began checking her vitals and neurological responses, while Nurse Chen updated her chart. But Dr. Rivera stood frozen, the girl's words echoing in her mind. 4719 Old Pine Road. A specific address, a hidden wall behind a furnace. Children waiting in the dark. With a trembling hand, she reached for her phone. Something told her this wasn't just the confused ramblings of a child emerging from a coma. Something about May's certainty, the clarity in her eyes. Dr. Rivera stepped into the hallway, her heart pounding as she dialed 911. "Yes," she said when the operator answered. "I need to report. I'm not exactly sure what, but I think it might be important. Very important." Dr. Rivera paced the hallway outside May's room, her phone pressed to her ear. The 911 operator on the other end was trying to make sense of her report, which sounded bizarre even to Dr. Rivera's own ears as she said it aloud. "Yes, I understand how this sounds," she said, lowering her voice as a nurse walked by. "A 12-year-old patient who just woke up from a 24-day coma gave me an address and said to look behind a false wall. No, she's never been to this address as far as I know. No, I don't know what's supposed to be there." She rubbed her forehead, feeling a headache coming on. "Look, I'm a neurologist at Metro Children's Hospital. I've been practicing medicine for 15 years. I don't make prank calls to emergency services." The operator asked a few more questions, then said they would dispatch officers to check out the address, but it would be considered a low-priority welfare check unless Dr. Rivera had specific reason to believe someone was in immediate danger. "Just, please have them look behind the furnace," she said finally. "If nothing's there, then fine. At least we checked." She ended the call and leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Was she crazy for making that call? Coma patients often experience strange dreams or hallucinations as they emerged from unconsciousness. There were perfectly reasonable neurological explanations for May's behavior, and yet, the girl's certainty had been unsettling. The way her eyes had focused, the deliberate way she'd recited that address, it hadn't seemed like confusion or delirium. Dr. Patel emerged from May's room, his expression thoughtful. "She's sleeping normally now," he said. "All readings show typical patterns for natural sleep. It's actually quite remarkable." "What do you make of what she said?" Dr. Rivera asked. "About the address and the children?" Dr. Patel adjusted his glasses. "Near-death experiences and coma states can produce all sorts of unusual neurological phenomena. The brain is still largely a mystery to us. She could have constructed elaborate dream narratives during her unconscious state. But the specific address could be something she heard while in the coma," Dr. Patel suggested. "We know auditory processing can continue even in unconscious states. Perhaps someone mentioned it in her room, a visitor, the radio, a TV show playing in the background." The explanation was reasonable, logical, but it didn't feel right to Dr. Rivera. "I called it in," she admitted. "To the police." Dr. Patel raised an eyebrow but didn't immediately object. "I suppose there's no harm in checking. Worst case, it's nothing and we've wasted a bit of police time. Best case," he trailed off, clearly not wanting to speculate. "Exactly," Dr. Rivera said. "I just couldn't ignore it. Not with how she said it. I understand. But let's focus on her medical care for now. She's going to need extensive assessment and rehabilitation, and we should contact social services. Her status has changed significantly." Dr. Rivera nodded. "I'll make the calls. And I want to be there when she wakes up again." The rest of the day passed in a flurry of activity. News of May's awakening spread through the hospital. Social services was notified, neurological tests were ordered, and a physical therapy consult was scheduled. Dr. Rivera fielded calls and coordinated care, but her mind kept returning to that address and the strange message. By late afternoon, May was awake again, more alert this time but clearly exhausted. She seemed disoriented, which was entirely normal for someone in her condition. Dr. Rivera sat beside her bed, asking simple questions to assess her cognitive function. "Do you know your name?" she asked gently. May nodded weakly. May Lee, she whispered, her voice still rough. Good. And do you know where you are? Hospital. May's eyes wandered around the room. Been sick, that's right. You've been asleep for a long time. You had an infection in your brain called meningitis, but you're getting better now. May seemed to process this information slowly, her brow furrowing with the effort of concentration. Dr. Rivera, she said suddenly, focusing again. That's your name. Dr. Rivera smiled, pleased that May remembered. Yes, that's right. Did you call them? May asked, her gaze sharpening. About the house? So she remembered that too. Dr. Rivera hesitated, unsure how much to engage with this topic. I did, she said finally. Someone is checking it out. May nodded, relief visible on her face. Good, they've been waiting. So long. May, Dr. Rivera said carefully. Can you tell me more about... Who told you about this house? You mentioned other children. May's eyes drifted toward the window, toward the late afternoon sunlight. While I was sleeping, I wasn't alone. There were others. Children like me, but different. Different how? Dr. Rivera asked, trying to keep her tone casual while her heart raced. They couldn't wake up. Not like me. May's voice was getting stronger as she spoke, as if the story itself was energizing her. They're stuck between. Between what, May? The girl turned back to look at her, and again Dr. Rivera was struck by the strange clarity in those young eyes. Between here and not here. May made a vague gesture with her hand. They showed me things. About them. About the house. Said I could help when I woke up. Dr. Rivera wanted to ask more questions, but she could see May tiring. The girl's eyelids were drooping, her responses becoming slower. You should rest now, she said, adjusting May's pillow. We can talk more later. May nodded sleepily, but just as Dr. Rivera was about to leave, she reached out and caught her hand. They're afraid, she whispered, of being forgotten. Then she drifted off to sleep, leaving Dr. Rivera standing there, a cold shiver running down her spine despite the warmth of the room. Hours later, Dr. Rivera was finishing her charting when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail. It was well past the end of her shift, but something made her answer. Dr. Rivera speaking. Doctor, this is Officer Huang with City Police. You called in a welfare check at 84719 Old Pine Road earlier today. Dr. Rivera sat up straighter, suddenly wide awake. Yes, that's right. There was a pause on the line, and she could hear muffled voices in the background. Doctor, are you sitting down? Officer Huang asked, his voice somber. What did you find? She asked, her mouth suddenly dry. We almost didn't check behind the furnace, the officer admitted. The house has been abandoned for years. It used to be some kind of children's group home called Pine Haven until it shut down in the 90s. We were about to leave when my partner remembered your specific instructions. Dr. Rivera's hand tightened on the phone. And? The wall behind the furnace was different from the others. Newer drywall, poorly matched paint. We knocked on it and heard a hollow space. After getting permission from the property owner, we opened it up. Another pause. Doctor, we found a hidden room. And inside? The officer's voice faltered slightly. Inside, we found evidence related to 3 cold cases. Children who went missing from the Pine Haven home in 1992. Personal items, journals. And I can't say more over the phone. This is now an active criminal investigation. Dr. Rivera felt the room spin around her. She gripped the edge of her desk for support. How? She began, but couldn't finish the question. That's what we'd like to know. Officer Huang said, we need to speak with your patient. The detective in charge wants to know how a 12-year-old girl who's been in a coma knew about a hidden room in an abandoned building across town, a building that was closed before she was even born. She's just woken up, Dr. Rivera protested. She's weak, confused. I understand, doctor. We'll be respectful of her condition. But this is, well, it's unlike anything I've seen in 15 years on the force. Detective Wong will be contacting you in the morning to arrange a time to speak with her. After the call ended, Dr. Rivera sat motionless in her office, the implications washing over her. What May had told her was real. Somehow, impossibly, the girl had known about that hidden room, about evidence concealed for decades. The rational part of her mind scrambled for explanations. Perhaps May had heard about the cold cases somewhere. Maybe a relative had worked at the home years ago and shared stories. But deep down, She knew these explanations were just attempts to make the inexplicable fit into her understanding of the world. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Nurse Chen. "May asking for you, agitated, can you come?" Dr. Rivera hurried back to the pediatric ward, her mind still reeling from the phone call. When she entered May's room, the girl was sitting up in bed, more alert than she'd been all day. Nurse Chen stood nearby looking concerned. "She woke up about 20 minutes ago," he explained. "She's been asking for you, saying she has more to tell you." May's eyes found Dr. Rivera's immediately. "They found it," she said. It wasn't a question. Dr. Rivera approached the bed slowly. "Yes," she said. "They found it." "How did you know about that place, May?" "I told you. They showed me." May's voice was stronger now, more insistent. "The children who lived there. The ones who never left, but how? While I was sleeping, I was somewhere else. A place where they are." May struggled to find the words. They've been trying to tell someone for a long time, but no one could hear them. Then I was there, and they knew I could go back. They said I had to remember the numbers, remember where to look. Nurse Chen exchanged a glance with Dr. Rivera, clearly concerned about his patient's mental state. But Dr. Rivera moved closer to the bed, pulled by the conviction in May's voice. "The police found some things in that room," she said carefully. "Things that belonged to children who disappeared a long time ago." May nodded, unsurprised. "Tina, Raj, and Lee," she said softly. Those were their names. Dr. Rivera felt her knees weaken. Those names hadn't been released to her by the police. As far as she knew, they hadn't been made public at all. "How do you know their names?" she whispered. "They told me," May said simply. "They've been waiting for someone to find them to know what happened. They said once people know, maybe they can go home." Dr. Rivera sank into the chair beside the bed, trying to process what she was hearing. Everything she knew about science, about medicine, about the rational world told her this was impossible. And yet here was May, a girl who had just emerged from a coma with knowledge she couldn't possibly have, knowledge that was now being confirmed by police. "May," she said finally, her voice unsteady, "the police are going to want to talk to you tomorrow." "About what you know," May nodded again. "That's good. They need to know everything, so the children can rest." "How much more do you know?" Dr. Rivera asked. "About what happened there?" May's expression darkened. "Too much," she whispered. "They showed me everything, all the bad things that happened in that house, the man who hurt them." Dr. Rivera exchanged another look with Nurse Chen, who nodded slightly and quietly left the room, understanding the need for privacy. "This is going to be difficult," Dr. Rivera said gently. "A lot of people are going to have questions. They might not believe how you know these things." "You believe me," May said, her eyes searching Dr. Rivera's face. "Don't you?" Dr. Rivera hesitated only briefly before answering. "Yes," she said, "I believe you." And she realized with some surprise that she did. Against all logic, against her scientific training, against everything she thought she knew about the world, she believed this child had somehow, during her long sleep, connected with something beyond ordinary understanding. "There's more," May said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "More children. Not just at that house. Others who need help. They've been trying to tell people for so long." Dr. Rivera felt a chill settle over her. "What do you mean, more children?" May looked toward the window where night had fallen, the glass reflecting their images back at them. "They found me," she said softly, "because I was like them, alone with no one to miss me, but now I'm awake and I can help them. They said you would help too." Dr. Rivera didn't know how to respond to that. Her world had shifted today, her understanding of reality fundamentally challenged. But looking at this brave, fragile girl who had somehow returned from her long darkness with an impossible purpose, she knew one thing for certain. "I will," she promised. "I'll help you." Morning light streamed through the windows of May's hospital room as Detective Wong carefully set up a small recording device on the bedside table. He was a gentle-looking man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Deliberately chosen, Dr. Rivera suspected to appear non-threatening to the young patient. "We'll keep this brief," he assured Dr. Rivera, who hovered protectively near May's bed. "Just a few questions. If she gets tired or upset at any point, we'll stop immediately." Dr. Rivera nodded, glancing at May. The girl looked better this morning. Some color had returned to her cheeks, and she sat propped up against her pillows, watching the detective with curious eyes. Still, she was far from recovered. Her body was weak from weeks of inactivity and she tired easily. "May?" Dr. Rivera said gently. "Detective Wong needs to ask you some questions about what you told me yesterday. About the house and the children. Is that okay?" May nodded solemnly. "They want me to tell," she said simply. "So people will know." Detective Wong pulled up a chair and sat down, keeping his movements slow and his voice soft. "May, I understand you've been through a lot. Thank you for talking with me today." He gestured toward the recording device. "Is it okay if I record our conversation? It helps me remember everything correctly." Another nod from May. "Thank you. Now can you tell me how you knew about the room behind the wall at Old Pine Road?" May's eyes drifted to the window for a moment as if gathering her thoughts. "While I was sleeping, I met some children. They showed me the house, showed me the room." "You mean you dreamed about it?" Detective Wong asked carefully. May frowned slightly. "Not dreams. It was real but different. They can't leave that place. They're stuck. These children, did they tell you their names?" "Tina, Raj, and Lee," May said without hesitation. The same names she'd mentioned to Dr. Rivera. Detective Wong's professional demeanor slipped just slightly, a flash of surprise crossing his face before he composed himself. "And did they tell you what happened to them?" May's expression darkened. "The bad man hurt them, Mr. Fletcher. He was supposed to take care of them, but he didn't." At the mention of this name, Detective Wong went very still. He glanced at Dr. Rivera, who was equally shocked. Neither of them had mentioned any names to May. "Can you tell me more about Mr. Fletcher?" the detective asked, his voice carefully neutral. May wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking smaller in the hospital bed. "He worked at the house, Pine Haven. When children misbehaved, he would take them to the room. Sometimes they didn't come back." Dr. Rivera felt a chill run down her spine. The girl was describing details of what sounded like murders that had occurred decades before she was born, at a place she'd never been. Detective Wong continued gently. "How did the children show you these things, May?" "When I was sleeping, I was somewhere else. A place between." May struggled to find the words. "They can reach there. They showed me memories like movies in my head. They knew I could come back and tell." "Why you?" Dr. Rivera couldn't help asking. "Why did they choose you to tell?" May turned those unsettlingly wise eyes toward her. "Because I was alone too. No one to miss me if I didn't wake up. They said that made me closer to them." The simple statement hung in the air, heartbreaking in its matter-of-factness. Dr. Rivera swallowed hard against the lump forming in her throat. "May," Detective Wong said carefully, "the information you've given us is very helpful. We found things in that room, evidence that might help us understand what happened to those children a long time ago. But I need to ask you something important. Is there anywhere else we should be looking? Did the children show you any other places?" May closed her eyes briefly, as if consulting an internal source. "The lake," she said finally. "Behind the house. In the water. That's where the bad man put Lee." Detective Wong made a note, his hand slightly unsteady. "Thank you, May. You're being very brave." The questioning continued for another 20 minutes, with May providing details about the house, the children, and their caretaker that left both adults increasingly disturbed. Finally, Dr. Rivera noticed May's responses becoming slower, her eyelids drooping with fatigue. "I think that's enough for today," she said firmly. "She needs to rest." Detective Wong nodded, gathering his notes and turning off the recording device. "Of course. Thank you, May. You've been incredibly helpful." As he packed up his things, he motioned for Dr. Rivera to follow him into the hallway. Once they were outside the room, his professional composure slipped. "Doctor, in 30 years of police work, I've never experienced anything like this," he said, keeping his voice low. "The names she mentioned, they match our cold case files exactly. 3 children who disappeared from Pine Haven Group Home in 1992. And Fletcher, Arthur Fletcher, was a staff member there who was questioned, but never charged due to lack of evidence. How could she possibly know these things?" Dr. Rivera asked, though she knew he had no better answer than she did. "I have no idea, but I'm heading to the lake she mentioned right now. If we find—" He trailed off, unable to complete the grim thought. "What will happen to her?" Dr. Rivera asked. "She has no family, nowhere to go once she's discharged." "Social services will find a placement," Detective Wong said, but his tone suggested he understood her concern. though this case is going to attract attention. Once word gets out— No, Dr. Rivera interrupted firmly. She's a child, not a sideshow. She's been through enough trauma already. I agree completely, he assured her. We're keeping her name and details confidential. But the media is already picking up on the investigation at Pine Haven. It's only a matter of time before they start asking questions about how we found the evidence. Dr. Rivera ran a hand through her hair, thinking quickly. For now, let's just say an anonymous tip led you there. Technically true, if not complete. Detective Wong nodded. We can do that. But eventually we'll figure something else out, she said. But right now, my priority is her recovery and well-being. After the detective left, Dr. Rivera returned to May's room. The girl had dozed off, exhausted by the interview. Dr. Rivera quietly checked her vitals and adjusted her blankets, her mind racing with everything she'd learned. Whatever was happening here defied medical explanation. Either May had somehow accessed information about decades-old crimes through some unknown means, or what? The alternative, that she had truly communicated with the spirits of dead children while in her coma, challenged everything Dr. Rivera believed about reality. Yet the evidence was mounting. The hidden room. The names. The details about Fletcher that were proving to be accurate according to Detective Wong. How else could May know these things? Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Detective Wong. Dive team on the way to the lake. We'll update you. Dr. Rivera sank into the chair beside May's bed, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of everything happening. This child, this remarkable, impossible child, had woken up with a mission that was now unfolding in ways none of them could have predicted. Dr. Rivera? May's voice was soft, sleepy. She hadn't been fully asleep after all. I'm here, she answered, leaning forward. How are you feeling? Tired, but better. May's eyes studied her face. You're worried. It wasn't a question. Dr. Rivera managed a small smile. Just thinking about everything. May reached out a thin hand and Dr. Rivera took it gently in her own. They're happy, the girl said. Tina and Raj, they know people are looking for them now. And Lee? Dr. Rivera couldn't help asking. He'll be happy soon. When they find him in the lake. The simple certainty in her voice sent another chill through Dr. Rivera. May, how do you know these things? Really know them? May was quiet for a moment, considering. When I was sleeping, it was like being in two places at once. Here, but also somewhere else. A place where the children are. They're stuck there because no one knows what happened to them. They can't go home. Go home where? Dr. Rivera asked softly. May shrugged slightly. Just home? They didn't tell me. But they can't go until people know the truth. Dr. Rivera nodded, trying to make sense of it all. And they chose you to tell their story. There are others too, May said, her voice growing fainter with tiredness. Other children, lost, forgotten, they need help too. Before Dr. Rivera could ask more questions, May had drifted off to sleep again. Dr. Rivera stayed by her side, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the peaceful expression on her face. It was hard to reconcile this fragile child with the vessel of such dark knowledge. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Detective Wong. Divers found something. Human remains, small, appears to be a child. Forensics on the way. Dr. Rivera closed her eyes briefly, a mix of horror and vindication washing over her. Everything May had said was proving true, no matter how impossible it seemed. Outside in the hallway, she could hear increased activity, voices, footsteps, the sounds of the hospital going about its normal business. But in here, in this quiet room with this extraordinary child, nothing felt normal anymore. Hours passed. Dr. Rivera attended to her other patients, filed reports, consulted with colleagues, but her mind kept returning to May and the unfolding mystery. By late afternoon, she found herself back in the girl's room reading through her latest test results. May's recovery was progressing remarkably well, faster than expected for someone who had been comatose for so long. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Nurse Chen entered, looking concerned. There's a news van outside, he said quietly, and a reporter tried to get onto the floor claiming to be a relative. Security stopped them. Dr. Rivera sighed. It's starting already. What's going on? Nurse Chen asked. Does it have something to do with the police visit this morning? Before she could answer, her phone rang. Detective Wong again. Doctor, Preliminary identification confirms the remains match the description of Lee Chen, age 9, reported missing from Pine Haven in October 1992. His voice was solemn but carried a note of disbelief. We've also found evidence linking Arthur Fletcher directly to all 3 disappearances. This case is breaking wide open. The media is already sniffing around the hospital, Dr. Rivera told him. I was afraid of that. It's going to get worse. This story is about to explode. 3 cold cases suddenly solved after 30 years. The press is going to want to know how we found the evidence. She's just a child, Dr. Rivera said firmly. She needs protection, not publicity. I agree. But social services is already overwhelmed. Once she's released from the hospital, he left the implication hanging. Dr. Rivera found herself speaking before she'd fully formed the thought. I'll take her. What? Detective Wong sounded surprised. I'll apply to be her foster parent, Dr. Rivera said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Emergency placement. I have the training, the resources, the space in my home. She trusts me. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's extremely generous, Doctor. But are you sure? This situation is only going to get more complicated. Dr. Rivera looked at May sleeping peacefully in her hospital bed. I'm sure. She needs someone in her corner. Someone who understands what she's been through, what she's still going through. After she ended the call, Dr. Rivera sat quietly, somewhat stunned by her own decision. What was she thinking, offering to take in a child? Her schedule was already packed, her life carefully organized around her demanding career. She had no experience as a parent, and yet, looking at May, she felt a certainty that this was right. This extraordinary child needed protection, understanding, and stability. All things Dr. Rivera could provide. May stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She looked at Dr. Rivera and smiled faintly. You want to take me home, she said. Again, not a question. Dr. Rivera felt that familiar chill but also a growing sense of wonder. Yes, she admitted. I'd like to when you're well enough to leave the hospital. Would that be okay with you? May nodded, still smiling. They said you would. The children. They said you were the right one to help. Help with what? Dr. Rivera asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Finding the others, May said simply. The ones still waiting to be found. The ones who need to go home. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows across the hospital room, and somewhere beyond the walls, media vans gathered as news of the cold case breakthrough began to spread. But inside, in the quiet space between them, Dr. Rivera made a silent promise to this remarkable child who had returned from the darkness with an impossible purpose. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 6 months had passed since Mei Lee woke from her coma and spoke the words that changed everything. 6 months of healing, adjusting, and beginning a new life that neither she nor Dr. Rivera could have imagined. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows of Dr. Rivera's suburban home as she poured orange juice into 2 glasses. From down the hallway came the sound of a piano, simple scales played with careful precision. May had started lessons 3 months ago, showing a natural talent that delighted her teacher. Breakfast in 5 minutes, Dr. Rivera called out, smiling as the scales paused mid-sequence. Coming, May's voice was stronger now, vibrant with the energy of a healthy 12-year-old. Dr. Rivera set plates of scrambled eggs and toast on the table, marveling at how quickly their morning routine had become familiar, comfortable. The emergency foster placement had evolved into a more permanent arrangement, with adoption papers now moving through the system. What had begun as a protective impulse had blossomed into something deeper, a bond that filled a void in both their lives. May appeared in the doorway, dressed in jeans and a bright yellow sweater, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. The physical changes in her were remarkable. Her once pale skin now glowed with health. Her thin frame had filled out, and her movements were strong and sure, with no lingering signs of her long immobility. But it was the light in her eyes that struck Dr. Rivera most, a spark of purpose that never dimmed, even on difficult days. Detective Wong called while you were in the shower, Dr. Rivera said as May slid into her chair at the table. They've identified those remains from the well in Crescent County. May nodded solemnly, not surprised. 3 weeks ago, she had provided another location to the police, describing with eerie accuracy a well on an abandoned farm property 40 miles outside the city. It's Zoe, isn't it? The girl who liked to draw horses? Yes, Dr. Rivera confirmed gently. They found a sketchbook with her name on it, just like you said they would. Her family has been looking for her since 1987. May was quiet for a moment, pushing her eggs around on her plate. They can stop looking now, she said finally. That's good. This had become their reality. May providing details about long-forgotten missing children and authorities finding evidence that confirmed her impossible knowledge. The pattern had repeated 5 times now since the initial discoveries at Pine Haven. The media had dubbed her the miracle child and the girl who speaks for the silent. Theories abounded, psychic abilities, divine intervention, elaborate hoaxes. Through it all, Dr. Rivera had fiercely protected May's privacy, turning down interview requests and keeping her away from the public eye. Are you ready for today? Dr. Rivera asked, changing the subject to something lighter. May brightened immediately. Yes, Ms. Patel said we're going to finish our volcano projects. Mine has real baking soda that'll explode when we add vinegar. The normalcy of the conversation warmed Dr. Rivera's heart. Despite everything, despite the remarkable abilities that set her apart, May was still in many ways a typical 12-year-old, excited about science projects, proud of her piano progress, occasionally grumpy about homework. After breakfast, Dr. Rivera drove May to school, a small private academy chosen for its discretion and supportive environment. The teachers knew May's history but treated her as they would any other student, which was exactly what both she and Dr. Rivera wanted. Remember, I have that interview at 4, so Mrs. Liang will pick you up today, Dr. Rivera reminded her as they pulled up to the drop-off zone. For the book, right? May asked, gathering her backpack. Right. Dr. Rivera had finally agreed to collaborate on a book about their experiences, but only with strict conditions: no sensationalism, no exploitation of the children's stories, and a significant portion of the proceeds going to a foundation they had established. May leaned over and gave her a quick hug before hopping out of the car. It's going to be good, she said with that same certainty that still sometimes sent chills down Dr. Rivera's spine. People need to know about the lost ones. Dr. Rivera watched her walk into the school building, marveling at the resilience of this extraordinary child who had become such an important part of her life. The day passed quickly. At the hospital, Dr. Rivera had reduced her hours to make more time for May, focusing now on research and teaching rather than a full patient load. Her colleagues had been surprisingly supportive once they understood the situation. Many had witnessed May's remarkable awakening and the events that followed. The interview in the afternoon went well. The author, a respected journalist with experience in both crime reporting and medical stories, asked thoughtful questions and seemed to genuinely understand the delicate nature of the project. What I find most compelling, she said toward the end of their conversation, is how this experience has changed both your lives, not just the supernatural aspects but the human connection that formed. Dr. Rivera nodded. That's what I want people to understand. Yes, what May can do is extraordinary. But the real miracle is resilience. Hers in overcoming everything she's been through, and the families who finally have answers after decades of uncertainty. By the time Dr. Rivera arrived home that evening, May had already finished her homework and was helping Mrs. Liang, their part-time housekeeper, prepare dinner. The domestic scene was so normal, so far removed from the hospital room where their journey had begun, that for a moment Dr. Rivera simply stood in the doorway taking it all in. Later, after Mrs. Liang had gone home and they had eaten dinner, May grew quiet, a familiar distant look coming into her eyes. Dr. Rivera had learned to recognize this expression. It usually preceded a revelation. What is it? She asked gently, clearing away the dishes. May traced patterns on the tablecloth with her finger. I've been having the dreams again. Dr. Rivera sat back down, giving the girl her full attention. The same ones? Similar, but different children this time. 3 of them. May looked up, her eyes troubled. They're showing me a place by water. A big building with a red roof. There used to be lots of children there, but something bad happened. Dr. Rivera had learned not to dismiss these visions, no matter how implausible they seemed. Do they show you where this place is? May closed her eyes, concentrating. There's a sign, Harborview Children's Home. She opened her eyes again. It's important. They've been waiting a long time. We'll call Detective Wong tomorrow. Dr. Rivera assured her. He'll look into it. May nodded, relief visible on her face. Then, changing the subject with the quick adaptability of youth, she asked, "Can we watch that movie tonight? The one with the robots?" The evening passed peacefully. They watched the movie, laughed together, and followed their normal bedtime routine. But as Dr. Rivera tucked May into bed, the girl caught her hand. "Do you ever wish I was normal?" she asked suddenly. "That I just woke up from the coma and didn't have all this weirdness?" The question caught Dr. Rivera off guard. It's okay if you do," May continued. "Sometimes I wish it too, but then I think about the children and how they've been waiting so long for someone to hear them, and I know I have to keep helping them." Dr. Rivera sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "I wish things could be easier for you. I wish you didn't have to carry such a heavy burden. But I have never, not for 1 second, wished you were different than who you are." She brushed a strand of hair from May's forehead. "What you can do, it's a gift even though it comes with difficulties. You're bringing peace to families who have lived with uncertainty for years. You're giving voices to children who were silenced. That's extraordinary, May. You're extraordinary." May considered this, then smiled slightly. "We're both a little weird, aren't we?" Dr. Rivera laughed. "I suppose we are. But maybe that's why we found each other." After May had fallen asleep, Dr. Rivera sat in the living room with a glass of wine, thinking about how completely her life had changed in the past 6 months. Her orderly, predictable existence had been upended, replaced by something far more complex and far more meaningful. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Detective Wong. "Just got the DNA results back from the Crescent County case. 100% match to Zoe Miller. Family has been notified. They're grateful beyond words." She typed back a simple response. "May will be glad to know. She has information about another location. Harbor View Children's Home. Can you look into it?" His reply came quickly. "On it. We'll call tomorrow for details." Dr. Rivera set down her phone and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed briefly, then faded. The world continued its normal rhythm outside, unaware of the extraordinary phenomena unfolding within these walls. The scientific part of her mind still struggled sometimes to accept what was happening. In her years of medical training and practice, nothing had prepared her for a child who could communicate with the dead, who could know things that had been hidden for decades, yet the evidence was undeniable. 5 cold cases solved, 5 families given answers, 5 lost children remembered and honored, and it had only begun, she realized. If May's latest dreams were any indication, there were more discoveries to come, more mysteries to unravel, more families waiting for closure. The following morning, as they prepared for their day, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Dr. Rivera opened it to find a middle-aged couple standing on her porch, looking nervous but determined. "I'm sorry to disturb you," the woman said. "My name is Helen Miller. This is my husband, David. We're Zoe's parents." Dr. Rivera's heart skipped a beat. "How did you find us?" "Detective Wong," Mr. Miller explained. "He didn't give us your address, just told us about you and May. We convinced him to pass along a letter. He said he'd mail it, but we couldn't wait." Mrs. Miller held out a small gift bag. "We just wanted to thank May. For 35 years, we didn't know what happened to our daughter. We couldn't move on. Now, because of May, we can finally lay Zoe to rest properly." Before Dr. Rivera could respond, she felt a presence beside her. May had come to the door, drawn by the conversation. "You're Zoe's mom and dad," she said quietly. She showed me her sketchbook. "She was really good at drawing horses." Mrs. Miller's eyes filled with tears. Yes, she loved horses more than anything. She held out the gift bag to May. "We brought you something. It's not much, but—" May accepted the bag and carefully removed its contents, a small hand-carved wooden horse. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Zoe's grandfather made it for her 13th birthday," Mr. Miller explained, his voice thick with emotion. "She never got to receive it. We thought, maybe you should have it." May held the carving carefully, running her fingers over its smooth surface. "I'll treasure it," she promised. "And I'll tell Zoe you're okay now. That you know where she is." The simple statement hung in the air, extraordinary in its implication, yet delivered with such matter-of-fact certainty that no one questioned it. After the Millers left, promising to stay in touch, May placed the wooden horse carefully on her desk. Next to a growing collection of small tokens, a baseball card, a colorful stone, A tiny silver locket, gifts from other grateful families. I think this is what it's all about, Dr. Rivera said, watching as May arranged the items. Not just finding answers, but connecting people. Healing broken circles, May nodded thoughtfully. The children told me that's why they chose me. Because I know what it's like to be lost and alone, and because they knew I'd find you. Me? Dr. Rivera was surprised someone